Welcome to the You're Worth It podcast with Coach Ha-Keem. Career conversations with leaders you need to know. Welcome to the You're Worth It podcast. In today's episode, we meet Kyle Steffen, who is a creative director who has spent his life, I think, capturing the imaginations of clients and for the different organizations he's worked with. This guy has a good to great mentality that is infectious and is going to create value for any organization that he's a part of in the future. Take a listen. Welcome, everyone, to the You're Worth It podcast with Coach Ha-Keem. Today's guest is Kyle Steffen. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. So in the You're Worth It podcast and on our podcast, we talk to our listeners and let them know a little bit more about who you are. And so if you don't mind, maybe tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, like you said, my name is Kyle Steffen. I am a creative in marketing and advertising. Been doing so for over 20 years now. Last 14 of those 20, I've been a creative director at a few different agencies, and looking to continue my journey forward and keep creating and move on to new and bigger things.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Well, tell me a little bit about, I'll be honest, it's a space I know less about. Tell me what does someone in creative do? What are some of the activities and challenges that you face?
Yep. Well, in marketing and advertising, the agency world, they're basically, it's broken into different sections. There's the account, who handle the day-to-day with the client. And then there is creative, and we come up with the ideas,
okay,
and the verbiage, the words, the copy, and the visuals. And then we work with account to sell those into the client, get their approval, move forward, and then everything goes into production.
Okay.
So be it video, be it print, be it online, that's kind of the basic structure of an ad agency. I'm in the creative area of it.
Okay.
Account talks to the client, gets the client's needs, pain points, wants. They write it into a brief. They come to us. We ideate, we concept, we come up with the ideas, and we pitch them, usually 3, maybe 4 different concepts.
Okay.
Of how to tackle that issue, that need, that want. And they will approve one, or they may take a couple of them and put them together. And then we flesh it out. We come up with the copy, the visuals, the video, whatever. And then once it's approved, then it goes into production, and then it's ready to roll, ready for prime time.
Very cool. No, I appreciate you explaining that. I got to admit, I'm really curious about the work that you do, just knowing, less about it. Is this something where, you have to be a creative person, or where do you find your inspiration for, the work that you do?
I think, to be honest, most people in the creative realm I've ever worked with, and it's true for myself, have always kind of been a creative in one way or another. Whether it's a writer who's inspired by literature or commercials. I personally, my entire life, was an artist and an illustrator,
Wow.
painter.
Wow.
I was doing that ever since I could walk. And ever since I could hold a crayon, actually. And then, when I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to go into art. I started my career at college, Winona State University, in fine arts. But it was the early 90s, and things were really changing. The computer now was coming more and more into the game. And I saw an opportunity for it to kind of allow me to break off the canvas, off the paper.
Yep.
And so I transferred to the Illinois Institute of Arts in Chicago. And there and mind you, the computer isn't the be all, end all, say all. It's just another tool. It's like a
Mhm.
paintbrush and a canvas. But I changed my degree to visual communications because I started really studying, um, what people were doing in the media with the medium, and and then I ended up getting an internship at an advertising agency, and I really kind of fell in love with it. All the creatives I've worked with, I think we're always kind of inspired in some sort of creative bend. Imagination is a powerful thing, and I think that's the key that brings us all into the same space.
That's really cool. I like the way you describe that, and it is something that, like I said, I know less about, but just have so much respect for. Just that we don't know often what goes behind the scenes to what we see in, on print and media, on TV, and so thanks for just giving us a behind the scenes look at what happens and how that gets
Yeah, and,
created. So
and that's a part of it too, because if part of it is if we're doing our job correctly, you're not wondering about that stuff. You're just thinking about the end product
right,
and letting it take your imagination and move with it.
yeah,
So I think that's kind
that's
of that's a lot of people. They ask me what I do, and I say, "Well, I'm a creative director." And they, what's that?
right. Exactly. Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's one of those where, um, yeah, you just don't realize. I mean, you go to a movie, you see all those names, and these are people that help put it all together. You see ads, print, media, things like that. You just really don't think how it gets in front of you, but you're a key part of that. So thanks for explaining the process to me and what you do.
Absolutely.
And so, as think about a question that I like to ask people, and it's one you could say interviewers ask it all the time, but one of the hardest things to do, I think, is talking about you. Just what are you good at? And so, if you were to take a few moments to tell us, the listener and those watching online, what you're good at, what would that be?
Creativity. I mean, it's that simple. Um, I have a very active imagination, and I've always been sketching, drawing, doodling, and then I think as that matured and I started moving more and more into my occupation, um, I really started taking that imagination and trying to really produce good work. What we get as a creative in this industry is, like I was saying earlier, the account person and the client get together and they come up with a brief.
Hmm.
And what I've always done, and I've always encouraged my teams to do, is we take that brief, it tells us what the client wants. And it's easy enough to just kind of regurgitate that brief and here you go. But I think the imagination, I mean, the reason we do the visuals, the reason we write the copy is because it's the idea, the story behind it.
Hmm.
And I always encourage everybody to push beyond the brief, to hit the points that the client needs done, but make it better. Try and strive to make it something great. You know, good is good, but when you can take it and you can do something where people are like, wow, I never thought about that or thought of it like that,
Yeah.
and catch their attention. Because mind you, in the space I'm in, we have seconds. It has to be a quick read or people are going to tune it out.
Yeah.
Everybody gets enough communication
It's,
already.
it's
We're
so
all
true.
blasted by it.
It's true.
So I always encourage people and push myself to go beyond the brief to make it something that's just really going to catch you right away.
I love that. I love the idea of going beyond the brief to using your imagination to capture the imagination of others. And so
Yep.
I really like that. I think that's really cool that you get a chance to do that on your day in, day out, and that's what you've been able to make a career out of. So I appreciate you sharing that. And as organizations, that might be watching this or talking to you at some point, they're always looking for, top contributors, people that are going to create value for their organizations. And so when they talk to you, or when, I guess if you're talking to them, what do you say to organizations? Why should they hire you?
Well, because they're going to have a solid partner in me. I'm going to take what their needs are or their pain points, and I'm going to do everything I can to try and not only solve for it, but improve it, make it better. Um, that's my goal, and to give them something they possibly couldn't even imagine.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes you run into a client or an organization that they have pain points or they have needs and they have something in mind but they cannot articulate it. And so I'm that person who's going to partner with you. I'm going to keep asking the questions. I'm going to dig deeper for you, and I'm going to try and get to where you're at, help you articulate it, hold your hand through the process,
Yep.
and then help you to solve for that, and push, like I was saying, to not only solve for you, but make it even better than you thought it could be.
Yeah, and that's something I think, because we all have expectations, the expectations of how the process is going to go, how it's going to work, and I like the idea. I mean, that you're walking people through this process. My guess is not everyone's gone through it as often as you have, and so that you're leading them through it, but that your goal really isn't just to meet, what's on the brief, but it's, again, to your point, to push beyond the brief to create something better than they thought. And I just can't help but, the book is it, Jim Collins, From Good to Great. Just this idea that you said it yourself, good is enough, but how do you take it to that next level? It seems like that's something that you're always striving for. And so when
Yep.
organizations get you, they get someone who's going to take something from good to great. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
great. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great.
Yep.
So one of these things, in order to do what you do, it requires a partnership, it sounds like. And so a team that you're on, the client that you're working with, and again, meeting those expectations, how do you create something that they're going to really enjoy and cherish? So what are, maybe is an example of one of those really good partnerships that you've had, be it a client, be it a coworker, be it, just another agency or whatever it may be. Can you think of an example like that?
Oh, there have been many, all the way from some of my past leaders, some of the people who were creative directors
Mm-hmm.
when I was starting out and brought me on. Um, uh, some of the teammates. I will say in my space, in general, I come from the art side.
Okay.
I'm a visual guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but it's all about the story. So it's not just visuals.
Okay.
In this area, you really need solid copywriters as well.
Okay.
Like you were saying, it is a team effort all around. There's no one person responsible for it all. When you see a finished product, it's like you were saying at the end of a movie, you see the list of people. But what we're ultimately aiming to do is where the visuals can capture attention,
Okay.
and help convey a story. At the end of the day, it is all about the story,
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to tell people. So a good partnership with a good copywriter um, is really kind of essential in the entire process.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, this is a team sport. This isn't an individual sport, it sounds like. And so in order
Yep,
to have those good partnerships, you have to have good people that you're working with. And so,
yep, yep. And
and
it is about team. It really is, and it, you can't be a team if you have people on there who are just about I,
right.
you know.
That's right.
So because it won't work out then, and it has always been and always will be a team effort.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, it's again, we don't know all the pieces of it, but we just see that finished product, and just knowing that, you know, the pieces that have to be put into place in order for it to work. You both have to, it sounds like maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like you kind of have to be amenable to the team that you have. Maybe, you know, in some teams you have maybe less of a strong copywriter. Some teams you have a really strong copywriter. Some, maybe the briefs aren't always as good as they could be. And you have to go back and push and get additional, like, is that true, or is that, how does
That
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 work?
is
And how do
that
you
is true.
adjust to that?
That is very true. Um, you know, like I said, sometimes a client has a hard time articulating their want or
Mhm.
need, and account people are usually the ones who are speaking with the client and taking that in. Um, but when we get briefed, um, sometimes we do have to kind of dig a little deeper because it's not entirely clear what the client was trying to get at.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes if account is having a difficult time drawing that out, I will jump on a call with account and the client and just start asking the questions. If I have a question about something on the brief, I just ask it, and I'm like, okay, where were you going with this? And
Right.
and it's a conversation, and it kind of helps them get a little more at ease and feel comfortable, and it helps to draw out at least the essence of what they were thinking or feeling, because if you're reading on a paper, sometimes things can get lost in the interpretation,
Yep.
and you just want to be able to get to the heart of it through them yourself, and then you proceed from there. You work with the entire team. As a creative director, if we have a big project, I'm just not the only visual person. We might have a couple copywriters. We might
Okay.
have 4 designers, art directors, and myself ideating and concepting.
Wow.
So we'll all go off. We'll discuss it, take the brief, come up with our ideas. Then we'll get them all together, copy, visuals. We'll go into a room with big boards on the wall. Well, now video monitors.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll share the concepts. We'll share the ideas. Some will come down, some will stay up. We'll refine and refine. But that's kind of the process. And
Okay.
then we present to the client. So we'll present 3, maybe 4 concepts, and then they'll get chosen from there. So it's actually a longer process than people think it is in some cases, especially when it's a big campaign and you're starting from scratch. Um, Once the campaign is established, sure, there could be smaller one-offs which are simple enough, but in that ideation process, it's very involved, and it's multiple people. It's not just a copywriter and an art director. It's many designers throw their ideas in, many copywriters can throw their ideas in, and then hopefully we're hitting that place where the client was having trouble articulating what they needed or wanted.
Okay. And so truly a collaborative and iterative process
Yep.
to get to that end state. And so those are, as we think about those strong partnerships, that's, I think that's what's required to, hit it out of the park for the customer. Maybe, can you tell me about maybe a difficult customer, or maybe a difficult creative, or difficult brief, or situation that you were in that you had to work through? Like, what was that? How'd you get out of it? How'd you
Yeah,
end up?
I'd say I'd say it's almost kind of what we were just talking about, but it's the client who you try to go to and speak with because you're not understanding something, and it's the ones who just say to you, well, I don't know how to articulate it,
Hmm.
and they won't.
So
And,
they don't know how to articulate it, and then they won't articulate it.
yeah, I don't know how to tell you.
So what do you
And
do?
so it's kind of like they're telling you to figure it out yourself.
Okay.
And that can be difficult because this person has something in their mind,
Right.
something they're seeing or something they're thinking. Um, and at that point, it kind of becomes sometimes a little bit of a guessing game if they won't talk to you or work with you.
Okay.
And you might have to go through many, many rounds of things. What ends up happening then is it's kind of like you're getting warmer,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're warm, and then finally it's like, that's it.
You help them see what they weren't able to see.
Correct.
Or tell you what they weren't able to communicate to you. They had, like you said, they had that vision in their head, but they weren't able to tell you what that was.
Yep, exactly. And sometimes some of them, there's been a couple who are just, like they said, I can't tell you, so I won't.
Yeah. So it's not,
Yep.
it's not meant as malice or anything. They're just not able to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a different process for them. Like you're saying, many people don't understand, the behind the scenes of what goes on. So,
I'm one of those people. I will tell you, the few times I've been, connected with strong marketing partners and agencies, and very few maybe with creative, but just the ability to articulate the vision that you have to someone else so that they can see it. It's a lot easier said than done, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened to me. I've had ideas and I've struggled to actually, to articulate them. Sometimes I'll just have to go and draw them up or work it up in the computer and be like, this is what I was thinking. It can be difficult. So there is no malice to those people who can't. It's just, I know it's a stressful situation for them too.
Yep, that's
So
right.
that's my job to, like I was saying, to kind of hold their hand and try and get through the process and get to where we want to be and make everything great.
No, that's good. So certainly hats off and kudos to you all for being able to do that and throughout your career to be able to help other companies, partners work through that. And so, as we get towards wrapping up here, there's, as we're in this process and as you're looking for that next opportunity, when you're talking to people listening, or watching you, talking to different companies potentially that may be watching this, what is that thing you want to leave the listener and those watching with? What words of wisdom, lasting impression? What's what do you want to leave us with?
I think it's been a theme throughout our entire conversation, and like you were saying, from good to great.
Mm-hmm.
Always strive to push and come up with something that's going to be memorable, that's really going to move things along. Um, at the end of the day, when you look back, you really want to be proud of what you've done,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to be proud of the product they're putting out. And I think that's what you'll always want to push for. Good to great.
And that's what they get with you. I can just tell, and just from listening to you, just the different ways that you communicate and you use visual, artistic words to really help people express the ideas they want. And so when they get that with you, they're getting someone who's taking things from good to great and who can help them work together to get to that good to great. And that is the common theme throughout our conversation. And that's, for me, that's the benefit. That's what differentiates you from others. Is this idea that you can deliver what they want, but you're always going to try and deliver more than what they want. And what they want, you want them to be
Absolutely.
delighted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I think it's a great lasting impression. Kyle, it's been a true pleasure to have you on the You're Worth It podcast. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we'll wrap up this episode of the You're Worth It podcast with Coach Ha-Keem and Kyle, and look for us here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and shortly on LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the You're Worth It podcast. Our goal here is to help everyone achieve their career dreams. Take a minute to like our content, review our books, and never forget, you're worth it. For more You're Worth It podcasts, career insights, merchandise, and exclusive content, check out CoachHakeem.com.